Susie is an ACCS trainee who's just entered CT2. She obtained an outcome 1 at her ARCP for EM/IM, and she's meeting with her educational supervisor to discuss her training for this year. Hi Susie, lovely to see you. How are things?
Hi, good thanks, Karine. I've just had a week in Cornwall, which was a lovely break. And I've just started anaesthetics, which is fun, but it does make me feel a bit like I'm a medical student again.
Oh yes, it tends to feel that way at the start. Well done for getting an outcome 1 in your ARCP last summer. That's good going in view of COVID. So just reviewing your end of year report, I don't think you had any outstanding areas that need addressing, and your MSF was glowing.
Thanks. I didn't manage to do an audit or a QI project last year, so I do need to make sure that I get one done this year.
Yeah, that's right. I've forgotten. So this might be something to discuss with your clinical supervisor, or you might find there's an audit lead in your department who can make some suggestions.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Now, as you're moving over from the old curriculum to the new curriculum, we should look at what you've completed so far and then what you'll be doing this year and how to achieve it. So you've had EM and IM signed off, which means that neither of these placements needs to be revisited. That being said, any evidence for competencies you've already completed can be linked to the new curriculum.
Yeah, I'm not sure I really know much about the new curriculum.
Not to worry. Essentially, the new curriculum is made up of 11 high-level learning outcomes, 9 of which are clinical and 3 are generic, and these need to be addressed during ACCS. Some you'll notice are specialty specific, and others get covered over a number of placements. So this table shows us what needs to be covered where and the level you need to reach by the end of the placement. From this, you can see that learning outcome 1, 2 and 4 are covered solely during IM and EM, so you can forget about these now. And the others need to be addressed during this year. The main anaesthesia one is learning outcome 7, so this will be the principal focus of the next 6 months for you. And during this time, you'll complete your IAC and you'll also cover sedation. Learning outcome 8 is all about organ failure, so that gets covered during your ICM placement. And over the whole year, during both ICM and anaesthesia, you'll also work towards learning outcome 3, resuscitation, learning outcome 5, practical procedures, learning outcome 6, challenging situations in the workplace, and then the 3 generic ones, education, research, and patient safety or QI. But all of what you need for these, you'll come across on a day-to-day basis during your anaesthetics and your intensive care.
What do those numbers in the table mean?
Oh yes, these relate to the supervision levels required. So level 2, which to be honest is most of ACCS, requires you to be able to meet that learning outcome under local supervision. 2A with a supervisor on the shop floor or in theatres, and 2B in the hospital.
Okay, so how do I know what I need to achieve?
If you look at the curriculum, for each learning outcome, it has key capabilities which show exactly what you need to be able to do, and then descriptors which give you more guidance. Now, for learning outcome 5, which is the generic practical procedures, each procedure has been allocated its own entrustment requirement.
So I've done Seldinger chest drains and I've done pleural aspiration when I was in ED. I even think I got workplace-based assessments to show for them. I've also done a simulation of an open chest drain when I was on my ATLS course.
Great, so you can link those to learning outcome 5. How about emergency vascular access?
So I've simulated IO access, but I haven't done it live.
Don't worry, simulation's fine for this, and you're unlikely to do IO access in anaesthesia or intensive care, but you'll probably be able to gain femoral access on a real patient. Now, you mustn't forget the non-clinical learning outcomes, and for these we don't have entrustment requirements, but you do need to demonstrate progression to an appropriate level.
So how do I evidence all of this?
Well, each learning outcome has a list of suggested types of evidence that can be used, and you need to build up a body of evidence to reflect your learning. We want you to start using the workplace-based assessments as learning tools rather than assessment tools. And the idea is that by doing this, you'll be receiving focused, constructive feedback from your trainers on how best to improve. And that way you can get the greatest benefit from your time here and really push yourself to excel rather than simply meeting minimum requirements. Any teaching sessions you attend, any online learning, any articles you read can be included in your evidence, and the more you reflect on it, the better. Now, I suspect there'll be lots that you've already done that can be linked to these learning outcomes. So should we have a look at your e-portfolio? I've got it open here. So this reflection about how you managed the incident where your patient tried to self-discharge against medical advice in the ED, well, that would be a very appropriate one to link to Learning Outcome 6, challenging situations in the workplace. And when you did this departmental presentation on out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, how did you do it? Did you do a literature search?
Yes, I did. And I said in my presentation how I did the search.
Then you should link it to Learning Outcome 10. But don't stop there. The key capabilities and the descriptors give you clear guidance of what's required, and we'd encourage you to seek out whatever learning opportunities you can. Now, during each of your placements, your clinical supervisor will arrange for a faculty of trainers you've been working with to feed back on your progress in the form of an MTR. And they're going to provide guidance on how you can improve further, and ultimately, coordinated by your clinical supervisor, they'll make entrustment decisions at the end of the placement for each of the relevant learning outcomes.
Yeah, so that fits with what my clinical supervisor had said. I've got 5 anaesthetic trainers who I'm going to do most of my lists with, who presumably are the ones who will complete my MTR. And then we have a novice anaesthetic training programme as well with weekly teaching. So we're working towards our IAC, which hopefully I'll complete by 3 months, so that then I can go onto the on-call rota. I didn't quite appreciate about the other learning outcomes though, so that's been really useful. I'll go back through my e-portfolio and I'll see what I can link to the other learning outcomes.
Great. So let's recap what we've talked about and what you're going to do. So we've looked at what you've already covered, and we've identified what learning outcomes you need to address over the year. You're going to take initiative and start to build up a body of evidence towards this. You're going to link activities from last year to the relevant learning outcomes for this year. And you're going to talk to your clinical supervisor about a QI or audit project. And of course, make sure you book your annual leave in plenty of time and take time away from work for your well-being. Does this sound reasonable?
Yes, I feel like I know what I need to do now.
Perfect. Should we touch base again halfway through the placement to check in with how it's all going? Of course, if you have any concerns or there's anything you'd like to discuss in the meantime, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Thanks.
Good luck with everything, and do keep in touch.